Welcome to She is Resilient, a podcast for women on their healing journeys who are ready to start living their most authentic and empowered lives outside of survival mode. I'm your host, Tatiana, trauma and somatic therapist, as well as a holistic coach, and I'm on a mission to help more women heal their nervous systems. Each week, me and my guests are going to get real and vulnerable about the experiences that led us to becoming the empowered and resilient women we are today. You'll leave this podcast with the skills, knowledge, and inspiration to start creating the life you deserve. Because if another woman can do it, so can you. Welcome back to another episode of She is Resilient. In honor of today's solar eclipse, if you're listening to this on April 8th, 2024, we are going to be talking about surrendering, but more specifically, surrendering to your body. So in astrology, solar eclipses represent new beginnings, rebirth, releasing what no longer serves you, and surrendering. And often when I talk about surrendering with the women that I work with, it's often perceived as something negative. And I can totally understand that because when we look at the definition of surrendering, it translates to giving up control or power. And that can be really scary, especially for a nervous system living in survival mode. Because your nervous system's number one job is to keep you alive. And so if your nervous system is living in survival mode, it's working really hard to protect you by staying in the sympathetic state of activation. So when your body is in a sympathetic state of activation, think tension, bracing yourself, hypervigilance, heart pumping, adrenaline, hyperfocus. So from your nervous system's perspective, giving up control or surrendering equals danger. But when I think about surrendering to your body, I'm thinking more so about surrendering to your body's wisdom. Surrendering to the fact that your body is 1,000 times wiser than your mind. Surrendering to trusting that your body is always trying to keep you safe and will do everything it can to keep you safe. And at the same time, if you're someone who struggles with chronic pain or illness, like an autoimmune disease, or even if you experience a lot of physical symptoms, I can absolutely understand that your body has probably not felt like a safe place for a really long time. So this practice will take some time, and it will take a lot of showing the nervous system that you're safe before it actually starts to feel safe. But just because it will take time and just because it will feel challenging doesn't mean that it's impossible. So one of my favorite books that I read when I was, I think, a sophomore in college is The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. And on the very first page of the book, he says, "Life is difficult. This is a great truth, one of the greatest truths. It is a great truth because once we truly see the truth, we transcend it. Once we truly know that life is difficult, once we truly understand and accept it, then life is no longer difficult." And it's one of my favorite quotes because I think it's about surrendering to the fact that life is difficult. Instead of holding on to the idea that life is supposed to be rainbows and butterflies all of the time. Because when we hold that idea so strongly and we try to make life rainbows and butterflies and we try to make everything fit into this nice little box, then we actually cause more harm for ourselves. And it's the same thing with surrendering to our bodies. How many times have you tried so hard to hold back your tears? Or how many times have you resisted leaning into your sadness or your anxiety or anger simply because you didn't want to feel it? Because you wanted to feel something different instead. Maybe you wanted to feel happy or calm instead. And I get that. Who doesn't want to feel happy and calm, right? But it's unrealistic to feel happy and calm all of the time. A regulated nervous system is about feeling the full range of emotions, the full range of sensations. A regulated and healed nervous system is definitely not about feeling calm and happy all of the time. And so think about how much energy you're using to resist your uncomfortable emotions or to hold back your tears. I mean, I've been there too. I've wanted to hold back my tears for a variety of reasons, but I know how much work that is. It just makes the knot in your throat stronger, the tension in your facial muscles stronger. It's a lot of work. And so imagine what it would be like for you to lean into those sensations and emotions a bit. What if you softened the grip a little so that you're not holding on to the resistance so strongly? And I don't mean letting go all the way if you're not ready to do that, but just softening a bit. What do you imagine that would be like for you? Allowing yourself to acknowledge that it's going to be uncomfortable and seeing if you lean into that discomfort just a little bit. Remember, we're not here to overwhelm the nervous system, so little tiny doses are all we need. You don't have to jump into this huge sea of discomfort, just a little tiny bit. And the most wonderful thing about emotions and sensations is that they're just energy. And energy flows, and it's only temporary. Even when it feels like it's lasting forever, we know that it's not going to last forever because that's simply how the nervous system works. And once we allow those sensations and emotions to flow, we can allow the nervous system to heal. But when we continue to hold on and resist those sensations and emotions from flowing through and out the body, we delay healing. And we can potentially re-traumatize the nervous system because we're preventing the body from discharging that energy and preventing it from doing what it's meant to do. So to better understand this, we can look at all of the different ways that the body discharges energy. So the body can discharge or release energy by crying, yawning, twitching, deep sighs, burping, farting, sudden jolts, chills, shaking or trembling, laughing, and a ton of other ways. So when these are done naturally, the body can discharge that energy to allow the nervous system to become more balanced. But so often what happens, usually in the therapy room, but also in other settings, is we prevent ourselves from completing these energy releases for fear of what others might think of us, or simply because some or all of these are viewed as socially inappropriate. But really, the body is just trying to balance itself. The body doesn't care if something is socially inappropriate. And so if we can surrender to the fact that the body holds more wisdom than our thinking brain does, we can allow the body to do whatever it needs to do to heal itself. Another example of this is fidgeting or swaying or making quote-unquote weird movements. I talk about this all of the time with the women that I work with, but when you look at healthy growing children who are not living in survival mode, they are so carefree and authentic. They jump and yell and move in whatever way their bodies want. They dance and they're silly. But somewhere along the line, as they get older, they start to be more conscious of the way that they show up, the way that they talk and move and behave. But imagine if you could go back to that. Imagine if you could feel so connected to your body that you could allow yourself to move in whatever way you wanted to, just like kids do. And you can, but it takes surrendering to your body, surrendering to the fact that there will always be someone out there who perceives you in a negative light, surrendering to the fact that it's not your responsibility if they do, surrendering to trusting your body and the way that it functions. And I think that I've been clear, but I want to make sure that you do understand that as I've talked about letting go and surrendering throughout this episode, I'm talking specifically about letting go so that you can lean into your body more. I'm not talking about letting go of your past or thoughts or experiences. And I truthfully don't believe that it's entirely appropriate to tell people to let go of their past because the nervous system doesn't differentiate between past and present. The body, the nervous system only lives in the present. And if the body is still responding as it did in the past, it's because it doesn't know that you're no longer in danger. The nervous system doesn't use logic. I know I say that all of the time, but I really want you to internalize that. The nervous system doesn't use logic. That's why when people say time heals all wounds, it's also very inaccurate. But that's a different conversation for another time, and maybe I should make an episode on all of the healing myths that are out there. So, like always, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and take today's solar eclipse as an opportunity to surrender. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you absolutely loved this episode, I would so appreciate it if you subscribed and left a review on Apple Podcast, or take a screenshot and share this episode on social media. Don't forget to tag me at tatiana.holistic.coach. The more nervous systems we reach, the more generational cycles we break, and the more we contribute to a kinder and safer world. And if you're looking for somatic healing services, send me a DM and I'd love to chat on how I can support you. I'll see you in the next episode.